The first thing that I ever decided to show the messy making process for was this yellow gabardine jacket, inspired by perhaps one of the most famous jackets in history, the Dior Bar Jacket, and that might have been my first sign of trouble. Posting your work online is terrifying, especially when you're a self-taught fashion designer. Your work isn't just your portfolio, it's your resume, your credentials, your reputation. That makes every critique feel personal, creating a constant pressure to be perfect. I'd taken a couture jacket making course and I wanted to put those skills to use. I drafted my own pattern and figured out how to create a custom fitted piece with the signature Dior padding. But what they don't tell you in class is that couture techniques, like hand stitching, only look good after a lot, and I mean a lot of practice. I wasn't deterred though. I spent 3 months on this piece. I poured my time and my effort into a project that felt like a huge leap forward for my tailoring skills. It was a true test of what I'd learned so far, while simultaneously being a deep dive into so many new processes I hadn't tried before. But then I hit post. I posted the finished piece online and the comments started rolling in. Some were lovely, but others were just savage. It was like a firing squad of criticism. People tore into everything from the way I held my iron to the ugly stitches on the lining. And then came the comment that I will never forget. Short novel that ended with, "How dare you be so confident posting such embarrassing work on the internet?" And of course, I'm human. I clicked on the profile and saw that it was posted by someone who was actually a designer who'd had runway shows in the 2000s, but now it was clearly their mission to knock me down a peg. I had been actually proud of the process, of the improvement that I'd made, and the courage I had to share all of the flaws, because I knew what an incredible learning experience those 3 months had been. So that comment had me in a chokehold for a while, and it almost stopped me. Okay, so imagine this. It's February. I was still new to sewing. I was making things very casually, not taking it very seriously. But I had an invitation to London Fashion Week, one of the biggest fashion events of the year. And I wanted to wear something that I'd made. So I settled on a jumpsuit, a puffer vest, and a hat. A whole look. The zipper was too long on the jumpsuit, so when I sat down, I had to worry about making sure it didn't stick out the side. The puffer vest had been made with wadding that was about 2 inches thick, which I somehow had forced under my machine without breaking it. I didn't know any better, but it was too thick to do a proper hem, so I just cut it and left it raw. And the hat, it'd been cute, but it didn't fit very well. It sat kind of funny. So I decided to just chop it off into a helmet. So we're in London. It's 9 p.m. I'm standing outside of a building where some of the most fashionable and talented people in the city are showing their creations. And me, I'm in my cobbled together designs. And all I can think of is awkward zipper, bad hem. I'd even come up with an excuse in case anybody asked about the raw hems on the vest. I felt a bit like a kid who'd worn their Halloween costume to school and was hoping that nobody would notice. Suddenly, I felt somebody grab my arm, and I thought it was security, but it was this perfectly dressed woman, and she looked at me impatiently and was like, "You're late." She steered me into an elevator with 2 other people who just walked up. I was stunned and couldn't really process anything as I stood there in shock. One of them looked at me and said, "Oh, I love this entire look." And I'd love to say that I said something clever back, but I honestly don't remember what came out of my mouth. The doors opened to a hushed exclusive runway show with only one row of seating on either side. I was led to a seat and told to enjoy the show, all because my imperfect little outfit with the zipper sticking out and everything. I mean, the technical errors didn't matter. What did matter was that I had had the courage to wear something bold that I had made, and the feeling that evening was truly one that I'll never forget. So this yellow jacket had never actually been my goal. It was originally supposed to be just a prototype to figure out the pattern for my ultimate vision, which was a full suit made from a vintage wool blanket with the same iconic shape. So I made it.
And wore it to yet another fashion week, but Copenhagen this time.
But while making it, I sewed the entire thing by hand on unfinished fabric, which was a point of pride at first. But really, I could have made it so much easier on myself by not doing that. I became obsessed with it looking absolutely perfect. And the reality is, nothing that I've ever made is perfect. But that's not just okay, that's actually fantastic. It means that I'm always trying something new. I call this my perfect shirt because it's a design that fits so brilliantly. It's perfect. But at the same time, the seams were a hot mess and I've had to repair them multiple times. The most gorgeous trousers that I've ever made, I bled on them and then shrunk them in the wash because I didn't pre-shrink the fabric. And then denim dress. It has absolutely killer Prada vibes, but I didn't know how to clip curves, which means the neckline never really quite lays flat. I also didn't pre-wash the denim and it's so stiff that the zipper eventually broke and got replaced by a buckle, but I still wear it all of the time. In fact, the other weekend I was wearing this dress and hanging out with friends when one of them asked me about learning how to sew. She said she was too scared to start, especially because the thing that I made always looked so perfect. And that's when it hit me. I was only too happy to jump in and point out all of the flaws on the very dress that I was wearing. The inside of the seams were actually a disaster. I'd originally made it only using a basting stitch, which is meant to temporarily hold the garment together. I could send her all of these videos where I'd shown off the end result and how I'd styled the pieces that I made, but I couldn't send her any that showed the actual difficulty I'd had with the process. And those are the things that would have helped her most to confront her fears. The expectation to be perfect from the beginning is a lie and a trap. But the best designers in the world didn't become masters because they were flawless. They got there by making, by messing up, learning, and doing it over again. And I've learned that my biggest fear isn't actually failure or imposter syndrome. It's a world where we're too afraid to show our growth, our process, our failures, where we only post that glossy finished product, the highlight reel. But I've decided to do it anyway. That same ugly armhole that I made. Well, I used that stitch again recently on this top. And I even filmed myself doing it because look how gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. How gorgeous it looks.
But it's also a stitch I've now been practicing for 2 years. But I appreciate it so much more now, knowing where I started from. And because I wasn't afraid at the very beginning to show the learning, to show that messy growth process.
I just aired my biggest fashion flops. So your little project, you should post it. And then tell me in the comments what messy, brilliant thing you're finally ready to share. It's the first time I've told a lot of these stories. I'm Leigh. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.